The composition of the air we breathe is changing. The sources of toxic emissions are all around us. Every year, around the world, 7 million people die from air pollution. It's the world's biggest environmental killer.
Here in Ireland, we have relatively good air quality compared with most of our EU neighbours, but that's thanks mainly to the prevailing Atlantic winds.
But the World Health Organization recently warned that many towns and cities across Ireland breach safe levels for air pollution. In fact, per year, over 1,500 deaths here are attributed to air pollution. That's more than 4 lives lost every day.
So I think it's time to ask, how safe is the air we breathe?
Ireland's west coast is one of my favourite places in the world. There's nothing quite like opening up the door in the morning to breathe in fresh, clean Atlantic air. Breathing air is essential for life. It's an instinct. And we take it for granted that the air we breathe is safe.
Our inhalation is caused by our exhalation. And so the longer that our exhalation is, the deeper the next breath will be.
The cells in our bodies require a constant supply of oxygen to survive. Not only does breathing provide us with this essential oxygen, it also rids our bodies of waste products, such as carbon dioxide. Our cells use oxygen in a process called cellular respiration. This process provides the energy that living cells need to carry out all of the functions necessary to maintain life.
Let the breath and the movement work together.
But how often do we think about what's in that air?
And then exhale, a really deep, long exhale.
Pollution and airborne particles brew up an unhealthy mixture in the air that's just waiting to enter our lungs. And according to the World Health Organization, this could be slowly killing us.
So what are these airborne threats, and where are they coming from? In Ireland, primary responsibility for monitoring air quality and emissions is assigned to the Environmental Protection Agency. To find out what's in the air we breathe, I'm here in UCD to meet Patrick Kenny from the EPA.
Patrick, what damage does air pollution actually do?
It's the impact on our health. This is a major public health issue. The recently published European Environment Agency's Air Quality in Europe report assigned 1,500 approximately premature deaths to poor air quality in Ireland, with the majority of those being due to fine dust particles, PM10 and PM2.5. And equally, the EPA is also concerned in relation to our nitrogen dioxide levels in our larger urban centres, where the trend is of concern.
And where do these air pollutants actually come from?
So we're standing here on the roof of the physics building here in UCD. There is an ongoing EPA-funded research project called Aerosource that is run by NUIG. And its provisional data, because that project is still running, is showing that 76% in wintertime in Dublin is coming from heating. The dominant source in there is solid fuel heating. It's your coal, your wood, and your turf. The remainder is coming from other sources, such as transport.
Is rural air quality then better than our urban air quality?
What we would see across our network is that the air quality in our smaller towns and villages in Ireland is often as bad, if not worse, than we have here in Dublin or in our larger cities.
Across the country, the EPA monitors the total amount of toxins suspended in the atmosphere. At their lab just off campus, Patrick showed me these microscopic pollutants captured on a filter.
These are filters from an instrument that pulls through a day's worth of air
So this is what it looks like before, and then you're saying that this is just one day.
That's one day's worth of air, yes.
This is, I honestly cannot believe that. I think that's terrifying because you can't see this, and you can't see this when you're looking around. And this is hitting people's lungs. This is genuinely being absorbed into our lungs.
Yes, that's the issue with those fractions of fine dust below PM10, that they are capable of passing deep and penetrating deep into our lungs with very negative health impacts.
Patrick, how are we doing by European standards here in Ireland?
When you compare our air quality against the limit values that are in the European directives, we don't breach or exceed those levels. However, that's not a complete picture, because when you compare us to the tighter World Health Organization's guideline values, we would exceed those at a number of stations across Ireland.
So Patrick, are we breaching the safe levels then for air quality?
The World Health Organization have intimated that there are no safe levels of air pollutants.
It's concerning that the primary cause for poor air quality in Ireland is man-made. The way we heat our homes here in this country and the fumes from our car exhausts are directly damaging our health. But how exactly is this air pollution damaging? To find out more, I've come to London. The UK has some of the poorest air quality in Europe, with around 40,000 deaths a year attributed to air pollution. A shocking joint report from the Royal College of Physicians and the Royal College of Paediatrics has shown the dangerous impact air pollution is having on health. Professor Jonathan Grigg is a leading UK paediatrician studying the effects of air pollution on human health and is a co-author of the report.
No one's death certificate ever says that they died from exposure to air pollution. How do we know it's actually killing people?
It's true that the death certificates don't say that, but they don't also say that you died from poor diet or from poverty, and I think we should regard air pollution in the same light. It's a toxin that we're exposed to day in, day out, and the effects on disease and premature mortality are, if you like, the cumulative effects of exposures over long periods of time.
How do these particles actually affect our health?
They're having effects across the whole life course. We know that air pollution exposure of mothers reduces birth weight in their children. We see reduced lung function in children living in high areas of high pollution. It causes new onset asthma, so it actually causes asthma in some children. If they have asthma, it makes it worse on a day-to-day basis. There's worrying signals about the effects of air pollution on the brain. In older individuals, cognitive decline appears to be accelerated. And it also sets up some of the effects that we see in adulthood, effects on the cardiovascular and respiratory system, which of course leads to major effects in later life and is the reason for the increased mortality that we know is associated with breathing in particles and nitrogen dioxide.
How can breathing in particles and breathing in gases affect anything other than the lungs? How does it affect us systemically?
Well, if you think about smoking, we know that breathing in cigarette smoke has effects across the whole body in causing cancer, both in the lung and in other organs, and in children having effects. And it's just the same sort of process that we're seeing with air pollution.
At the Blizzard Institute, under Professor Grigg's supervision, Lee Coe is conducting research with the aim of reducing the exposure of vulnerable children to air pollution. The only way to do this, without an overall reduction in emissions, is to determine where and when throughout the day peak exposures occur, so that these can then be avoided. Participants like Hamid, who suffer from asthma, are given a personal air monitor with a GPS to create an individual exposure profile.
Tell me then about this research project that you were doing.
So the UK limit is the green line, which shows that's where we think the limit is supposed to be.
So this big spike here, what did we think that might be?
That's when I have break time and lunch.
And you're going outside into the schoolyard here?
Yeah.
Is this when you're going home?
Yeah.
And you obviously have to go outdoors for those too, don't you?
Mm.
And who do you think is making it all?
Well, it's the people who make cars and start fires and stuff like that.
And Hamid, I suppose you don't drive?
That's
it.
Well, I do have more control in cars, but I don't drive.
As a mother, I feel really sad. My generation, fair enough, maybe we are all damaged. But for them, they're still young. We should think about them.
And you walk a different way now, do you? Yeah. And tell me about why you walk a different way.
Because the way that I used to walk was too polluted. I just couldn't walk there. It was just too much.
And what's the new way like?
It's less polluted.
And can you feel better then?
Yeah.
That's good.
Hamid's peak personal exposure was mostly as a result of roadside diesel emissions. By choosing alternative routes or staying indoors, he's able to avoid high episodes of air pollution and reduce his personal exposure, which improves his health.
Jonathan, do you think that the roadside levels of exposure are actually relevant for health?
There are basically two types of air pollution that we're exposed to. One is a sort of background level, which is the same across the whole city, and you can capture that by one or two monitors, for example, on a high building. Then we've got that second air pollution, which is exposure to freshly generated pollutants from the roads. They're much more difficult to capture because we can't monitor individual exposure very easily over long periods of time. And that effect is very localized, highly localized. So within about 150 meters or so, the effects of the road fall back to background levels. But we all travel on roads. Some of us live on roads or go to school along roads. And to understand the health effects, you certainly have to understand how your population is exposed to that component of air pollution.
Recent modelling of the air pollution in London found that as much as 40% comes from diesel vehicles. With Ireland having one of the highest percentages of diesel ownership in the EU, could we be sleepwalking into a health crisis? Emissions from diesel cars are responsible for tens of thousands of early deaths across Europe every year. Since Volkswagen admitted to cheating on vehicle emissions tests, many other car makers have since come under suspicion. In reality, new diesel cars are still emitting many times the official limit. With so much evidence against diesel, why do we here in Ireland have such a love affair with this filthy way of powering a vehicle?
Geraldine, tell me, why are diesel cars so popular here in Ireland?
In 2008, the government at the time, which were the Fianna Fáil and Green Party coalition, took the decision to change the VRT and motor tax system. Now, at the time, it was based on engine capacity or engine size, and they moved it to one based on CO2 emissions. So immediately it benefited diesel cars. And over the last 10 years, the diesel sales have continued to be inflated because of that preference.
Are we starting to see that the sales of new diesel cars are actually coming down again now?
In 2016, 70% of the market was still diesel. In 2017, 65%. So there hasn't been much of a drop. Because of Brexit and the drop in sterling, there has been an increase in imports. Now, the problem in the UK is they're facing a very, very serious air pollution problem, and they've taken, proactive measures against diesel cars. In London, for example, they brought in the toxicity charge last year, and this is basically a charge on top of the congestion charge for people driving old diesels and old petrol cars. And now it looks like they're going to bring in more additional taxes. Some cities are going to ban diesels. So as a result, diesel car values have fallen quite drastically in the UK, and the sales are dropping. That's why we see a much larger proportion of imported cars being diesel than petrol. And the worry, I suppose, is that Ireland is going to become a dumping ground for the UK's unwanted diesel cars.
So then what are we supposed to do with this? I mean, the government are the ones that encouraged us to buy them. How can they now discourage us?
Yeah, whatever the government decide to do, they have to be mindful of the fact that they persuaded people to buy diesel in the first place. But what 2008 does demonstrate is you can change buying habits by changing the tax system.
Our tax system, which incentivises diesel-powered vehicles, will continue to drive up air pollution. Surely this just doesn't make sense. As we've seen in the UK, even short periods of roadside exposure to diesel emissions can be high enough to cause acute health effects. I'm here in Trinity College, where a research project funded by the EPA is currently investigating the impacts of diesel vehicle emissions in Irish urban environments.
So Nathan, tell me a bit about what we're going to see here.
So I'm going to take you to one of our two monitoring sites. This one here is located on Pier Street. As you can see, it's a roadside location with a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
So I'll take you into the
Not the
equipment
nicest
now.
location,
Yeah.
probably.
So this is the setup that we have on Pierce Street. Our monitor, it's a pump that operates at 3.5 litres per minute, which is the same average breathing rate.
So is the idea sort of if I was standing on Pierce Street and just breathing for a full 24 hours, what you're getting on your filters is what my lungs are going to be taking in?
Exactly.
So you've one site here, right in the busy city centre, is that right? And then where's the other site?
So this busy city centre traffic site, we're comparing this site here to a more residential site in Phibsborough, north of the city centre.
Okay, I suppose let's get these filters out and have a look and see then what's going on with our lungs,
Okay. So here are the filters that were collected yesterday, so we can go and have a look at these.
So then when you take your filters back to the lab, can you actually tell the source of the pollution on the filters?
Yeah, well, that's the overall aim of this research.
And what kind of sources then are you getting?
So firstly, you're going to have a big industrial background source, then a major source from domestic burning of solid fuel for residential heating, and then motor vehicles, in particular older diesel vehicles, are a significant contributor. So to give you a bit of context first, here's a set of blank filters that have no sample collected on them, compared to the 24-hour sample that was collected in Phibsborough and the 24-hour sample that was collected on Pierce Street.
It's really, really obvious difference, isn't it? I mean, this is so much darker.
Visually, it's very striking, the amount of black carbon, particularly, that was monitored at Pierce Street.
And then tell me a bit about what you actually weighed in these two different samples.
The average 24-hour mass that we collected in Phibsborough is 9 micrograms per metre cubed, and that's compared with 40 micrograms per metre cubed at our Pierce Street location.
And there's around about 4 times as much then particulate matter on this as there is in the Phibsborough one, is that right?
Yeah.
God, you can absolutely see it there. So maybe that's the thing in Ireland, isn't it? We feel like we actually do have very good air quality, and I know that on average we do, but there are certain micro-environments where the air quality is genuinely very poor, isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on Pierce Street, on a very busy roadside location like that, someone is going to be exposed to much higher levels of particulate matter pollution.
The study is still ongoing, but preliminary results indicate that diesel is indeed a significant factor at the Pierce Street site. And if you think you're safe because you're inside the diesel-powered car, you'd be wrong. Many studies have shown people travelling inside cars are actually exposed to far higher concentrations of pollution. But emissions from engines aren't the only threat. Open fires are the most inefficient way to heat a home. Around 12% of Irish homes still burn solid fuels such as peat, wood and coal. But this accounts disproportionately for approximately 70% of our air pollution. How do we shift from solid fuels to cleaner alternatives? I'm in Templemore to meet Paul Kenny from the Tipperary Energy Agency to learn about a pilot programme that could provide the solution to this problem.
Welcome to Tipperary, yeah.
Thanks a mil. And then tell me, what kind of things are you specifically doing in the houses?
Well, maybe I should just show you.
Perfect,
right.
thanks, Paul.
Let's go.
We're on our way to see a pilot scheme that's being trialled in the homes of people with respiratory health issues, such as COPD and asthma. This scheme is providing deep retrofits to reduce energy usage in the home, as well as drastically improving the indoor air quality by removing solid fuel-burning fireplaces and stoves.
This is Paul O'Brien, who's one of the contractors who does the work here.
Just watch your step now coming in here. This is into the kitchen here.
Okay, perfect.
You see.
I can feel the warmth already, that's so nice. So Paul, I can see this kind of artefact behind us here. What was this?
This is actually an old Stanley range, which was probably in most of our houses when we were growing up. The homeowner here was just burning turf, actually 24/7, 365 days a year, even in the summer weather, like he was heating his hot water with the Stanley range here. So
was this heating the whole house?
It was only heating 2 rooms in the house, so the rest of the house then was cold. So you'd come in here, it was melting, and then upstairs was very cold. I'll just show you the sitting room here where we closed up. There was an open fire here, and as you see, we've it all plastered up, so there'll be no more lighting open fires here again either. You can see evidence of where the wallpaper here was rising a little bit from some dampness inside in the house, and even on the carpet, like, you know.
Well, you can really see the carpet there. That's genuinely black. That just looks like it must have been really unhealthy to be in here.
Yeah, well, like when the rooms aren't being heated to a proper temperature, like you will have dampness building up. So the air quality in this house, like, is going to be a lot better, because as well we're putting in the demand control ventilation and a constant heat inside in the house.
So this is an air source heat pump. So essentially what it does is cold air comes in the back at maybe 6 or 7 degrees in the winter and comes out about 3 degrees at the front. So it pulls the energy out of the air from outside and then heats that up to a higher temperature and puts it into the house using a compressor.
So this is exceptionally efficient, really. I mean, you're stealing the tiny bit of heat we have outside here and you're using it for your house.
Yeah, it's by far the most efficient, cheapest way to heat a house.
That's amazing. Can I have one, please?
When do we start?
Thank you.
Advanced ventilation, insulation and air tightness will raise these houses to an A energy rating standard and eliminate all emissions from the home. One of the first houses to be completed under the pilot programme was Aileen McCarthy's in Cullen. Aileen was diagnosed 5 years ago with COPD. I went to see if the retrofit has benefited her health.
And tell me a little bit about what it was like before any of the renovations were done.
I used to have an open fire. I found that the coal, the smuts from the coal, the ashes and the fumes from it were catching me, and I was getting all congested with phlegm, which then I'd have another chest infection.
And then tell me then, for someone with a condition like yours, like COPD, what has this meant for your life?
I find since this was done, I don't need oxygen as much during the day. You know, in the morning I just needed a lot after getting up. Of course, you'll be at the ashes of the fire and you'll be, you know.
So you don't have to do that either anymore?
I don't have to do any of that no more, so it's marvellous. And my own doctor is happy with me because I don't be in there that often with chest infections anymore.
So Aileen, then, does your husband like the new house and the new environment?
Well, John now wouldn't be meant for the heat like me. No.
But he's surviving anyway.
But he'd find a big change, yeah.
On the other side of the county, Sheila Hackett's home was also upgraded. Sheila's partner Liam and their 2 daughters suffered from asthma, which was exacerbated by the damp and mouldy conditions in their home before the upgrade. Holly showed me the inhaler she no longer needs.
You take off the lids like this, you stick it in here, you put your mouth on it, and you press it down, and it'll go in and you'll have to breathe in and out 5 times. You'll have to take a drink after it, because it tastes yucky.
Almost immediately we saw the difference in the two kids. Isla doesn't cough at night anymore, Holly doesn't cough at night anymore. We don't have to give her an antihistamine going to bed for her nose to unblock. She doesn't need to take an inhaler. The girls are going to grow up in a house that's healthy and clean and safe to live in.
So Paul, retrofitting homes will benefit air quality.
We're removing combustion from the home. So that removes all particulate matter from the home in totality. There's the indoor air quality benefits for health of the occupants of the home. There's the monetary benefits for the home. There's the monetary benefits for the state. And there's the creation of jobs. The list of benefits is endless. And the challenge is, how do we unlock the potential of these benefits for society?
Over 1,500 deaths in Ireland each year are attributed to air pollution. That's almost 10 times the number of people that died on our roads last year. And the health costs from air pollution are thought to be as high as €2 billion every year. Replacing fossil fuels with clean energy in transport and residential heating will dramatically improve Ireland's air quality. It's simply not enough to rely on a change of weather or the prevailing Atlantic winds to tackle the toxic air we are breathing.